The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clattered onto the concrete floor of my garage. It was past midnight, and I was elbow deep in the engine of a 1967 Camaro that belonged to old Mr. Peterson from down the street. The car was my sanctuary, my escape from the suffocating tension that had been building in my house for months. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. That's when I heard Lisa's voice drifting through the thin walls separating my workshop from our kitchen. She was on the phone, and her voice had that breathy, excited quality I hadn't heard directed at me in years. "I can't wait to see you naked again," she whispered, followed by a giggle that made my stomach drop. "The Riverside Motel, room 12, same time tomorrow." I stood there, oil-stained and frozen, listening to my wife of 15 years plan her next rendezvous with whoever the hell was making her sound like a teenager again. My hands started shaking, not from the cold October air seeping through the garage door, but from the rage building in my chest like steam in a pressure cooker. "Dad, you're such a loser." I spun around to find my 17-year-old daughter Emma standing in the doorway, her phone clutched in her manicured fingers like a weapon. Her perfectly straightened blonde hair caught the harsh fluorescent light as she glared at me with the kind of contempt only a teenager could muster. "What did you say to me?" I asked, wiping my hands on an old rag. "Mom told me you've been acting all paranoid and jealous lately. She says you're going through some kind of midlife crisis." Emma's voice dripped with the same condescension I'd been hearing from Lisa for months. "Maybe if you actually paid attention to her instead of hiding out here with these stupid old cars, she wouldn't be so unhappy." I stared at my daughter, this person I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for, and realized she was already on her mother's side in a war I didn't even know I was fighting. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. "Get out of my garage," I said quietly. "Whatever, Dad. You're pathetic." She turned on her heel and strutted back toward the house, probably to post something on TikTok about what a disappointment her father was. I stood there alone among the tools and car parts that made sense to me, unlike everything else in my life. My name is Jack Morrison, and I'm 42 years old. I own Morrison Classic Auto Restoration, a small business I built from nothing in this dying Midwest town of Millbrook. I'm good with my hands, I pay my bills, and I thought I was a decent husband and father. Apparently, I was wrong about everything. The next morning, Lisa was already gone when I stumbled into the kitchen for coffee. A note on the counter said she had an early meeting. Right. An early meeting at the Riverside Motel with her mystery lover. I called my best friend Danny at his gym. Danny Kowalski was an ex-boxer who'd opened Kowalski's Fitness after his fighting days ended. He was the only person in this town who still treated me like I mattered. "Jack, you sound like hell," Danny said when he answered. "What's going on?" "I need to talk to someone. Can you meet me at Mel's Diner?" "Give me 20 minutes. Mel's Diner was the kind of place where the coffee was strong, the gossip was stronger, and the waitresses had been working there since the Carter administration. It was also where everyone in Millbrook eventually showed up, which made it perfect for what I was planning. Danny slid into the booth across from me, his massive frame making the vinyl seat creak. His graying hair was still damp from the shower, and he had that concerned look he got when he knew someone was about to do something stupid. "Talk to me," he said. I told him about the phone call, about Emma's attitude, about the growing distance between Lisa and me. Danny listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or shaking his head. "So what are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I'm going to find out who this bastard is," I said. "And then I'm going to make them both pay for what they've done to my family." Danny leaned back and studied my face. "Jack, you need to be smart about this. Don't do anything that's going to land you in jail or make you look like the bad guy." "Don't worry," I said, feeling something cold and calculating settle into my chest. "I'm not going to do anything illegal, but I'm also not going to just sit there and let them destroy everything I've worked for." That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed my own wife. Lisa's silver Honda Civic pulled out of the Millbrook insurance office where she worked as an HR manager. Instead of heading home, she drove across town to the Riverside Motel, a seedy little place that rented rooms by the hour to truckers and cheaters. I parked behind a dumpster and watched as she knocked on the door of room 12. When it opened, my blood turned to ice. It was Brad Hutchinson. Brad worked with Lisa at the insurance office. He was one of those guys who thought he was God's gift to women, with his perfectly styled hair, expensive suits, and BMW that he probably couldn't afford. He was also married to a woman named Catherine, who I'd met at a few office parties over the years. I sat there in my beat-up Ford pickup, watching my wife disappear into that motel room with Brad, and something inside me broke. Not my heart. That had been cracking for months. Something deeper. Something that had kept me civilized and decent and willing to play by the rules. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. After an hour, they emerged from the room, Lisa adjusting her hair and Brad checking his watch like he had somewhere important to be. They kissed goodbye, and Lisa headed home while Brad got into his precious BMW. That's when I made my first move. I waited until Brad went back into the motel room, probably to clean up. Then I walked over to his car, pulled out my pocket knife, and slashed all 4 tires. For good measure, I left a note under his windshield wiper. "Hope she's worth it, asshole." I was walking back to my truck when the motel clerk, a scrawny guy with bad teeth, came out of the office. "Hey!" he yelled. "What are you doing over there?" "Just admiring the car," I called back, quickening my pace. "Beautiful machine." I drove home with my heart pounding, feeling more alive than I had in months. It wasn't much, but it was a start. When I walked into my house, Lisa was waiting for me in the living room. She was still wearing the same clothes she'd had on at the motel, and her lipstick was smudged. "We need to talk," she said. Emma was sitting on the couch with her phone, recording everything. She looked up at me with a smirk that made my hands clench into fists. "About what?" I asked, playing dumb. "About your jealous, controlling behavior," Lisa said. "Brad called me. Someone slashed his tires at the motel where he was meeting a client. He thinks it was you." I almost laughed. A client, that's what she was calling herself now. "Why would I slash some guy's tires?" I asked. "I don't even know where he was." "Because you've been following me." Lisa's voice rose to a shrill pitch. "You've been checking my phone, questioning where I go, acting like some kind of psychopath." Emma looked up from her phone. "I already posted about this on TikTok," she announced. "My dad's a psycho who slashed some guy's tires. It's getting a lot of views." I stared at my daughter, this stranger who shared my DNA, but apparently none of my values or loyalty. Then I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved and supported and built a life with, who was standing in our living room defending her lover. "You want to know the truth?" I said quietly. "I did slash his tires, and if he keeps messing around with my wife, that's just the beginning." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's phone slipped from her fingers. Lisa's face went white. "Jack," Lisa whispered. "What are you saying?" I walked toward the stairs, then turned back to look at both of them. "I'm saying the game just changed, ladies. Hope you're ready to play." The next few weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Lisa had apparently decided that the best defense was a good offense, so she launched a campaign to paint me as an unstable, controlling husband who was having a breakdown. She started with her friends from work. Suddenly, my phone was buzzing with concerned messages from people I'd known for years, asking if I was okay and suggesting I might need professional help. The story Lisa was spreading was that I'd become obsessed with the idea that she was cheating, that I was following her around town and making wild accusations. The brilliant part was that it was mostly true. I was following her, and I was making accusations. The only difference was that my accusations were completely accurate. Emma became Lisa's chief propaganda minister, posting regular updates on social media about her toxic father and her poor mother who was just trying to hold the family together. She had a real talent for making me look like the villain while positioning Lisa as the long-suffering victim. Meanwhile, Brad got bolder. He started showing up at my house when I wasn't there, bringing Lisa flowers and staying for dinner with my family. Emma loved him, of course. He was young and charming and drove an expensive car. Everything her boring old dad wasn't. The breaking point came at the Hendersons' backyard barbecue. The Hendersons were our neighbors, and they threw a big party every year for the whole neighborhood. It was one of those suburban traditions that I usually enjoyed, but this year felt different. This year, I was the neighborhood pariah. Lisa showed up with Brad as her friend from work. She introduced him to everyone as if he was just a casual acquaintance, but I could see the way they looked at each other, the way they found excuses to touch hands or stand close together. I was standing by the grill with Danny, who'd come as my moral support, when Brad approached us with 2 beers and that smug smile I was learning to hate. "Jack, right?" he said, extending his hand. "I'm Brad. I work with Lisa." I looked at his manicured hand and felt the urge to break every finger. Instead, I smiled and shook it. "Brad," I said. "The guy with the tire problems." His smile faltered slightly. "Yeah, that was weird. Someone really did a number on my BMW." "Probably someone who doesn't like cheaters," I said casually, taking a sip of my beer. The tension was immediate and electric. Danny stepped closer to me, and I could see other people starting to notice our conversation. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Brad asked, his voice getting louder. "I said someone probably doesn't like cheaters," I repeated, making sure my voice carried across the yard. "You know, guys who sleep with other men's wives?" Brad's face turned red. "Are you accusing me of something?" I'm not accusing you of anything, I said. I'm telling you, you're screwing my wife, and everyone here is about to know it. That's when Brad made his mistake. He got physical. He shoved me backward, and I stumbled into the grill, knocking over a platter of burgers. The crowd gasped and turned to stare at us. You're crazy, Brad shouted. Lisa told me you were losing it, but I didn't realize how far gone you were. I straightened up and dusted off my shirt. Then I smiled the kind of smile that made Danny take a step back. Am I crazy, Brad? I asked. Or am I just a husband who knows his wife is meeting you at the Riverside Motel every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon? The silence was deafening. Lisa appeared at Brad's side, her face pale with panic. Jack, stop, she hissed. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. That's rich, coming from someone who's been lying to our friends and neighbors for months. I turned to address the crowd that had gathered around us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Brad Hutchinson, my wife's boyfriend. They've been having an affair for months, but don't worry, they're very discreet about it. They only meet at cheap motels during work hours. The gasps and whispers started immediately. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. In a small town like Millbrook, this was better than cable TV. Brad lunged at me again, but this time I was ready. I sidestepped him and watched as he stumbled forward, tripped over a lawn chair, and landed face first in a bowl of potato salad. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Someone yelled, "Nice moves, Jack!" And I realized that maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. Brad struggled to his feet, potato salad dripping from his hair and expensive shirt. He looked around at the laughing faces and pointing phones, and I could see the exact moment he realized his reputation in this town was destroyed. This isn't over, he snarled at me as he headed for the gate. You're right, I called after him. It's just getting started. Lisa followed him out, but not before turning back to glare at me with pure hatred. I'll never forgive you for this, she said. Good, I replied. I wasn't planning on forgiving you either. After they left, the party actually got better. People came up to shake my hand and tell me they'd suspected something was going on. Danny bought me another beer and clapped me on the back. That was either brilliant or insane, he said. Maybe both, I admitted, but it felt good. I was starting to feel like myself again for the first time in months when Emma appeared at my elbow. She'd been filming everything on her phone, and her eyes were bright with excitement. Dad, that was amazing, she said. I got the whole thing on video. This is going to go viral. I stared at my daughter, confused. I thought you were on your mother's side. Emma shrugged. I was, until I saw what a loser her boyfriend is. Did you see him fall into the potato salad? That was hilarious. Maybe there was hope for my family after all, but my celebration was short-lived. The next morning, I woke up to find that Emma had indeed posted the video, and it was spreading through social media like wildfire. The problem was, she'd edited it to make it look like I'd attacked Brad unprovoked. The video showed me confronting Brad, but it cut out the part where he shoved me first. It made me look like an unhinged husband who'd physically assaulted an innocent man at a neighborhood party. By noon, I was getting calls from angry parents who didn't want their children around someone violent and unstable. The local newspaper called asking for a comment about the domestic dispute that had been caught on video. Lisa and Brad were playing the victim card perfectly, and I was once again the villain. That's when I realized I needed to change my strategy. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. But I was going to be smarter about it. I was sitting in Mel's diner, trying to figure out my next move, when a woman slid into the booth across from me. She was beautiful in an understated way, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through me. You don't know me, she said quietly, but your wife is sleeping with my husband. Here's proof. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photographs of Lisa and Brad at various hotels, credit card receipts, and even some text messages. My name is Catherine Hutchinson, she continued, and I think it's time we joined forces. I looked up at this woman, this stranger who just offered to be my ally in a war I was losing, and felt something shift inside my chest. What did you have in mind? I asked. She smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. Total destruction, she said. Are you interested? I thought about Lisa's betrayal, Emma's public humiliation of me, and Brad's smug face as he fell into that potato salad. Lady, I said, you just made my day. Catherine Hutchinson was nothing like what I expected from Brad's wife. Where I'd imagined some vapid trophy wife who spent her days shopping and getting her nails done, Catherine turned out to be a forensic accountant who worked for a firm in the city. She was smart, methodical, and absolutely ruthless when it came to revenge. "I've been gathering evidence for months," she explained as we sat in her car in the parking lot behind Mel's diner. "Brad thinks I'm clueless, but I've been documenting everything: bank records, hotel receipts, phone records, even GPS data from his car." She handed me a thick folder filled with papers and photographs. The level of detail was impressive and slightly terrifying. "Why haven't you just divorced him?" I asked. Catherine's laugh was cold. "Because divorce would be too easy. Brad has been stealing from his clients at the insurance office. He's been using his position to funnel money into accounts he thinks I don't know about. If I divorce him, he might go to prison, but he'd also take Lisa down with him since she's been helping him cover it up." This was news to me. Lisa's involved in his embezzlement? She's the HR manager. She's been falsifying employment records and covering up client complaints. They're both going to lose their jobs when this comes out, but that's just the beginning. I stared at this woman who just revealed that my wife was not only an adulteress, but also a criminal. "What do you want from me?" "I want to destroy them both, but I want to do it slowly. I want them to lose everything: their jobs, their reputations, their friends, their dignity, and I want them to know that we're the ones doing it to them." It was exactly what I'd been wanting to do, but hadn't known how to accomplish. Catherine had the resources and the knowledge, but she needed someone on the inside, someone who could get close to Lisa and Brad. "What's your plan?" I asked. "Phase 1 is already in motion. I've been feeding information to their boss at the insurance company. By the end of the week, they'll both be under investigation for fraud and misconduct." "And Phase 2? Catherine smiled that sharp smile again. "Phase 2 is where you come in. We're going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of people they really are." Over the next week, Catherine and I met regularly to coordinate our campaign. She was incredibly organized, with spreadsheets and timelines and contingency plans for everything. I provided local knowledge and access to the places where Lisa and Brad felt safe. The first blow came on Thursday when Lisa came home from work looking shell-shocked. "They're investigating me," she said, slumping into a kitchen chair. "Someone made allegations about improper conduct and financial irregularities." I looked up from the newspaper I was pretending to read. "What kind of allegations?" "I can't talk about it. It's confidential." She buried her face in her hands. "Jack, what if I lose my job? What if they press charges?" For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the phone call I'd overheard, the lies she'd been telling about me, and the way she'd paraded Brad around our neighborhood like some kind of prize. "I'm sure it'll work out," I said. "You haven't done anything wrong, have you?" The look she gave me was pure panic, which told me everything I needed to know about her innocence. The second blow came the next day when Brad's BMW was repossessed from the insurance office parking lot. Apparently, he'd been missing payments for months, using the money for hotel rooms and gifts for Lisa instead. Emma, who'd been unusually quiet since the barbecue incident, came home from school with news that Brad's wife had been seen around town asking questions about him and Lisa. "Some of the other kids' moms are saying Mrs. Hutchinson hired a private investigator," Emma reported. "They think she's going to divorce him and take everything." "That's too bad," I said, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. But the real masterpiece came on Saturday night. Catherine had somehow gotten hold of Brad's phone and cloned it, giving us access to all his text messages and calls. She'd also managed to hack into his social media accounts and his email. "Are you ready for the grand finale?" she asked when she called me that evening. "What do you have in mind?" "Check your email in about 5 minutes, then forward what I send you to everyone in your contact list." What she sent me was a compilation video that would have made a Hollywood editor proud. It was a montage of Brad's text messages to various women, including Lisa, set to music and edited like a movie trailer. The messages were explicit, arrogant, and revealed him to be exactly the kind of sleazy predator I'd always suspected he was. But the best part was the financial records Catherine had uncovered, showing how Brad had been using client funds to pay for his affairs. She'd even found receipts for jewelry he'd bought Lisa with stolen money. I forwarded the video to everyone I knew, and within hours it was spreading through Millbrook like a virus. By Sunday morning, it had been shared hundreds of times and was making its way through social media platforms across the region. Lisa's phone started ringing at dawn with calls from friends, family members, and coworkers who'd seen the video. She spent the morning crying and screaming at me, accusing me of being behind the leak. "You did this," she sobbed. "You're trying to destroy my life." "I didn't make that video," I said truthfully. "And I didn't steal money from insurance clients or lie to investigators." "You're working with her, aren't you? With Brad's wife?" I shrugged. "Catherine seems like a nice lady, a lot more honest than some people I know." Emma, who'd been watching the drama unfold from the stairs, finally spoke up. "Mom, is it true? Did you really help Brad steal money?" Lisa looked at our daughter, this teenager who'd been her biggest supporter, and I could see the exact moment she realized she'd lost her too. "It's complicated," Lisa said weakly. "No, it's not," Emma replied. "It's stealing, and it's gross." That afternoon, Brad showed up at our house, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive clothes were wrinkled, and there was a desperate look in his eyes that made me almost feel sorry for him. "We need to talk," he said when I answered the door. "I don't think we have anything to discuss," I replied. "Please, Jack, this has gone too far. That video is ruining my life." "Good," I said. That was the point. "Look, I know you're angry about Lisa, but what we had is over. I'll stay away from her. I'll leave town if I have to. Just make it stop." I studied his face, looking for any sign of the arrogance and smugness that had made me hate him so much. All I saw was a broken man who'd finally realized the consequences of his actions. "I can't make it stop," I said. "You did this to yourself, Brad. You stole money, you destroyed families, you hurt people who trusted you. This is just karma catching up." "My wife is taking everything," he said desperately. "My house, my car, my savings. She's going to divorce me and make sure I go to prison." "Sounds like Catherine is a smart woman," I said. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on her." Brad's desperation turned to anger. "You think you're so righteous, don't you? You think you're the good guy in this story?" "I think I'm a husband who got tired of being lied to and disrespected," I said. "And I think you're a thief and a cheater who finally got caught." "This isn't over," Brad snarled, and for a moment I saw a flash of the entitled bastard he really was underneath the desperation. "You're right," I agreed. "It's not over, it's just getting started." As Brad drove away in what I assumed was a rental car, I felt a sense of satisfaction I hadn't experienced in months. But I also knew that Lisa and Brad weren't going to go down without a fight, and things were about to get much more complicated. That evening, Catherine called with disturbing news. "They know we're working together," she said. "Brad hired a lawyer, and they're threatening to sue us for harassment and defamation." "Can they do that?" "They can try, but they'd have to prove that what we revealed was false. Since everything in that video was true, they don't have much of a case." "So what's the problem?" "The problem is that they're desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. We need to be careful, Jack. This is about to get ugly." She was right, but I was past the point of caring about ugly. I'd been living in ugly for months, and now it was their turn. The lawsuit threat turned out to be a bluff, but it marked the beginning of the most vicious phase of our war. Lisa and Brad, realizing they were losing on every front, decided to go nuclear. It started with Emma. On Monday morning, I woke up to find my daughter's room empty and a note on her pillow. "Gone to stay with Mom's sister in Chicago. Don't try to find me." Lisa was already gone too, along with most of her clothes and several items from our house that I'd paid for. She'd left her own note on the kitchen table. "I can't live with someone who's trying to destroy me. Emma and I need time away from your toxic behavior." I called Lisa's sister Margaret, but she claimed she didn't know anything about Lisa and Emma coming to stay with her. Either she was lying, or Lisa had taken our daughter somewhere else entirely. The panic was immediate and overwhelming. Whatever Lisa had done, Emma was still my daughter, and the thought of not knowing where she was made me physically sick. I called Catherine, who came over within an hour. "They're trying to make you look like an unfit father," she said after reading Lisa's note. "If you react badly to this, if you do something desperate or violent, it'll support their narrative that you're unstable." "So what am I supposed to do? Just let them disappear with my daughter?" "We're going to find them, but we're going to do it legally and carefully. I have contacts who can help us track them down." It took Catherine's private investigator less than 6 hours to locate Lisa and Emma. They weren't in Chicago with Margaret. They were holed up in a motel across town with Brad, who'd apparently been evicted from his house when Catherine filed for divorce. "They're all living together in a 2-bedroom suite at the Extended Stay America," Catherine reported. "Lisa registered under her maiden name, but Brad's credit card is paying for it." The image of my teenage daughter living in a motel with her mother and her mother's boyfriend made me see red. But Catherine was right about staying calm and legal. "What can we do?" I asked. "We can make their lives very uncomfortable," Catherine said with that sharp smile I was learning to love. "And we can make sure the whole town knows exactly what they're doing." The next morning, I filed a missing person report with the police, claiming that Lisa had taken Emma without my consent, and I was worried about their safety. It was technically true. I was worried about Emma's safety, especially living in a motel with a man who was under investigation for embezzlement. The police visit to the Extended Stay America caused quite a scene. according to Catherine's investigator. Lisa was furious about being tracked down, Brad was terrified about additional legal scrutiny, and Emma was apparently horrified to learn that her romantic adventure was actually a sordid situation that was becoming public knowledge. But the real blow came when Catherine's divorce attorney served Brad with papers at the motel. The process server made sure to do it during the day when other guests and staff could witness the drama. Within hours, word had spread through Millbrook that Lisa Morrison was living in a motel with her married boyfriend and had taken her teenage daughter with her. The story got more scandalous with each telling, as small-town gossip tends to do. My phone started ringing with calls from concerned neighbors, Emma's teachers, and even Lisa's own family members who were horrified by what they were hearing. "Jack, what the hell is going on?" Lisa's mother called to ask. "Margaret says Lisa and Emma are living in some motel with a married man." "That's what I've been trying to tell people for months, Helen," I said. "Lisa's been having an affair, and now she's dragged Emma into it." "But why would she take Emma away from home? That doesn't make sense." "Because she's been caught stealing money from her job, and she's trying to make it look like I'm the problem instead of taking responsibility for what she's done." The conversation with Lisa's mother was the first of many. By the end of the week, Lisa's entire extended family was calling to express their shock and disappointment. Several of them reached out to offer me their support, which felt like a small victory. But the biggest victory came when Emma called me directly. "Dad?" Her voice was small and uncertain, nothing like the confident teenager who'd been posting videos about my toxic behavior just weeks earlier. "Emma, honey, are you okay?" "I want to come home," she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. "This place is gross, and Brad is creepy, and Mom keeps crying all the time." "Where are you right now?" "At school. Mom drops me off in the morning and picks me up after, but everyone knows where we're living and they keep asking me questions." My heart broke for her. Whatever else had happened, Emma was just a kid who'd gotten caught up in her mother's mess. "Do you want me to come get you?" "I can't. Mom says if I go home with you, she'll never speak to me again." "Emma, listen to me. Your mother is dealing with some serious problems right now, and she's not thinking clearly. You don't have to choose between us, and you don't have to live in a motel to prove you love her." There was a long pause. "Dad, did Mom really steal money?" I closed my eyes. "I think your mom made some bad decisions because she was in love with someone who wasn't worth it. But yes, she's in trouble at work, and it's serious." "I'm scared," Emma whispered. "I know, sweetheart. But you're going to be okay. I promise." That afternoon, Emma didn't get in the car when Lisa came to pick her up from school. Instead, she called me and I drove over to get her. Lisa was waiting in the parking lot and the confrontation was inevitable. "You can't take her," Lisa said, stepping between me and Emma. "I'm her mother." "And I'm her father," I replied. "And she called me to come get her because she doesn't want to live in a motel with your boyfriend." "Brad isn't my boyfriend anymore," Lisa said desperately. "That's over. I'm just staying there temporarily until I can figure things out." "Then come home," I said. "Both of you. Come home and we'll figure it out together." For a moment, I thought she might actually say yes. There was something in her eyes that looked like the woman I'd married, the person she'd been before Brad and the lies and the stealing. But then her phone buzzed with a text message, and whatever moment we'd been having was gone. "I can't," she said. "There's too much damage. Too many things that can't be fixed." "That's your choice," I said. "But Emma shouldn't have to pay for it." Lisa looked at our daughter, who was standing beside my truck with tears streaming down her face. "Emma, please," Lisa said. "Don't let him turn you against me." "Nobody's turning me against you, Mom," Emma said quietly. "You did that yourself." It was the most adult thing I'd ever heard my daughter say, and it broke my heart and made me proud at the same time. Lisa got back in her car and drove away without another word. Emma and I went home, where she cried for 2 hours and then asked if we could order pizza and watch a movie like we used to when she was little. "Dad," she said as we sat on the couch sharing a pepperoni pizza, "I'm sorry about all those things I posted online. I was angry and confused, and Mom kept telling me you were the problem." "You don't have to apologize, Em. You were trying to protect your mother. That's not a bad thing." "But I was wrong about you, and I was wrong about Brad. He's gross, and he treats Mom like garbage when he thinks no one is listening." I put my arm around my daughter and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. But our peace was short-lived. The next morning, I woke up to find my workshop had been vandalized. Someone had broken in during the night and destroyed thousands of dollars worth of tools and equipment. They'd also spray-painted "wife beater" across the wall in red letters. I knew immediately who was responsible, but I couldn't prove it. Brad was desperate and getting more dangerous, and now he was trying to destroy my livelihood along with my reputation. That's when I realized it was time to end this war once and for all. The vandalism of my workshop was the last straw, but it was also a mistake on Brad's part. In his desperation to hurt me, he'd committed a crime that could actually be prosecuted, and he'd left evidence. Catherine's private investigator found security footage from a business across the street that clearly showed Brad's rental car parked outside my shop at 3 a.m. More importantly, it showed Brad himself breaking in and destroying my equipment. "Now we have him," Catherine said when she brought me the footage. "This isn't just harassment or defamation. This is breaking and entering, vandalism and destruction of property. He's looking at serious jail time." But I had a better idea. "I don't want him to go to jail," I said. "I want him to face the whole town and admit what he's done." Catherine raised an eyebrow. "What do you have in mind?" "The Harvest Festival is this weekend. The whole town will be there, including the mayor, the police chief, and everyone who's been gossiping about this situation for months. The Millbrook Harvest Festival was the biggest event of the year in our small town. It was held in the town square, with food vendors, live music, and a stage where local politicians gave speeches and community awards were handed out. "I'm going to make sure Brad gets the recognition he deserves," I said. It took some planning and a few favors from people who'd been supporting me throughout this ordeal, but by Saturday afternoon, everything was in place. The festival was in full swing when Lisa, Brad, and surprisingly Emma showed up together. Emma had apparently gone back to her mother during the week, though she'd been texting me regularly to let me know she was okay. I was working at the Morrison Classic Auto Display, showing off some of the restored cars I'd been working on. It was good for business and helped remind people that I was a legitimate member of this community, not just the crazy husband everyone had been gossiping about. Brad was trying to keep a low profile, but his presence at the festival with Lisa was causing a stir. People were pointing and whispering, and I could see him getting more uncomfortable by the minute. That's when Danny approached the microphone on the main stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Danny announced, "we have a special presentation today. Jack Morrison, one of our longtime community members, has something he'd like to share with everyone." I walked up to the stage carrying a laptop and a portable projector that we'd set up earlier. The crowd gathered around, curious about what was happening. "Thank you all for coming out today," I began. "I know there's been a lot of talk around town lately about my family situation, and I thought it was time to set the record straight." I could see Lisa and Brad pushing through the crowd, probably trying to get close enough to stop me, or at least hear what I was going to say. "A few months ago, I discovered that my wife was having an affair with a man named Brad Hutchinson," I continued. "Now, affairs happen, and marriages end, and that's just life. But what I also discovered was that Mr. Hutchinson and my wife were stealing money from their clients at the insurance office." The murmur from the crowd was immediate and electric. I had everyone's attention now. "But that's not the worst part," I said, connecting the laptop to the projector. "The worst part is what happened when I tried to expose the truth." The screen lit up with the security footage from my workshop break-in. The video was clear and damning. Brad breaking down my door, destroying my tools, spray painting lies on my wall. The crowd's reaction was immediate and angry. These were people who understood the value of hard work and honest business. Seeing someone destroy another man's livelihood was unforgivable. "Brad Hutchinson did this because I threatened to expose his affair and his embezzlement," I said. "He's a thief, a vandal, and a coward who destroys other people's property when he gets caught." I could see Brad trying to push through the crowd toward the stage, his face red with rage and panic. "But here's the thing that really gets me," I continued. "This man convinced my wife to help him steal money, convinced her to lie to investigators, and then convinced her to take my daughter to live in a motel with them when their crimes were exposed." The crowd was getting uglier now, with people shouting questions and accusations. I could see Lisa near the front, tears streaming down her face, and Emma standing beside her looking mortified. "I'm not asking for your sympathy," I said. "I'm just asking for justice. Brad Hutchinson is a criminal who's been hiding behind my wife's reputation and my daughter's innocence. It's time for him to face the consequences of his actions." That's when Brad finally made it to the stage. "You son of a bitch!" he screamed, lunging at me. "You've ruined my life." But I was ready for him this time. I sidestepped his attack and watched as he stumbled and fell off the stage, landing hard on the ground in front of the crowd. The laughter and cheers from the audience were deafening. Brad struggled to his feet, looking around at the hundreds of faces staring at him with contempt and disgust. "You're all going to pay for this," he shouted. "I'll sue every one of you." "With what money?" someone yelled back. "You're broke and going to prison." That's when the police chief stepped forward. "Brad Hutchinson, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, vandalism, and destruction of property." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Brad looked up at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yeah, it is," I said. It's been over since the moment you decided to mess with my family." The crowd erupted in applause as Brad was led away. But I wasn't done yet. I turned back to the microphone and looked out at Lisa, who was standing frozen in the middle of the crowd. "Lisa," I said, my voice carrying across the square, "you have a choice to make. You can keep following that loser to prison, or you can come home and try to salvage what's left of our family." The silence was complete. Everyone was waiting to see what she would do. Lisa looked around at all the faces staring at her, then up at me on the stage, then at Emma, who was watching her with desperate hope. "I'm sorry," she said, so quietly I almost couldn't hear her. "Jack, I'm so sorry." "Sorry isn't enough," I said. "But it's a start." I walked down from the stage and stood in front of my wife, this woman who'd betrayed me and lied to me and nearly destroyed our family. "Are you coming home?" I asked. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "If you'll have me." I looked at Emma, who was crying too, and at the crowd of people who'd witnessed this entire drama play out. "We'll see," I said. "But first, you're going to make things right. You're going to cooperate with the investigation, you're going to pay back every penny you helped steal, and you're going to earn back the trust you destroyed." "I will," Lisa whispered. "I promise I will." As we walked away from the festival together, me, Lisa, and Emma, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Like I'd won. Brad Hutchinson was arrested, charged, and eventually sentenced to 3 years in prison for embezzlement and vandalism. Catherine got everything in the divorce and moved to another state to start fresh. Lisa lost her job, but avoided prison by cooperating with the investigation and paying restitution. She's working at a grocery store now, trying to rebuild her life and our marriage. Emma deleted all her social media accounts and started focusing on school instead of drama. She still talks to me about everything, and she's never posted another video about our family. As for me, I learned something important. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything.